My name is Tanya Levinson. I'm a licensed therapist and a psychologist. I hold a qualification of psychologist in Italy, and I'm a psychotherapist with cognitive behavioral therapy. And something that has been on my mind lately and has been happening to my clients a lot lately is high function depression. And I'm afraid some of you can relate to this if you've joined, or maybe somebody you know is going through that. So we would love to try and help you in some small way and try and really just raise awareness of what depression can look like. So December is full blown and Christmas is approaching fast. And actually, it's a very emotional time for many of us. Many different emotions come up, and many things are happening for us, for all of us. Deadlines at work, big achievements, big Q4 deadlines and things, and also a lot of joyful events like your Christmas parties, going back home to your family, celebrating with people you love. But in fact, for some people, that's where a numbness really starts. So that's when you have your short Christmas break or your long Christmas break, you get a chance to slow down and suddenly you realize you feel nothing. And this emotional numbness is one of the red flags with high function depression. So if that's been the case, or if that's something that you've been feeling, this is the place for you. I'm very happy to be here with you tonight. So, thanks a lot for joining. Yes, I hope you can hear and see me well. And this is a very gentle evening for all of us. So the Q&A function is working and the chat is open for you. And yeah, whenever you have questions, whenever you have any concerns, anything that caught your attention, please let me know. I will really be happy to be here for all of you. But if you're here to just listen and maybe write things down, maybe just relax, I'm very happy to welcome you to this space. States of Mind is a media platform that writes about all topics connected to mental health. We have original articles, we have covered a number of fascinating topics in the area, and we also have a brilliant community. And yes, we are doing the work to just promote mental wellness and mental health and just be there for you to support your mental health. So yes, very happy to share this space with you. So I will start presenting and I will give a little overview on high function depression. Hello. So the title is High Function Depression, What Can Actually Help? And what we are discovering here is that depression doesn't always look like withdrawal. So for many people, actually, even those who are not very familiar with the diagnosis and with the mental health domain, this understanding is there. The depression, the diagnosis of depression involves withdrawal, that you have to kind of stay home and not be able to get out of bed to get the diagnosis, to be depressed. That kind of, this is the definition. If you are disabled in some way, then you are depressed. But high function depression makes it all very different and complicated because many people actually do show up. They continue to work, they continue to talk with people, they continue to, get out of bed as simply as this. They continue to shower, make breakfast and lunch and dinners, but they are still not okay. Their functioning is not normal and it lies very deep down sometimes. This is quite common for men too, as a diagnosis of depression starts with confessing, I am not okay. I am not feeling fine, I am not ready to show up. But to take this step and to say, no, I am not ready to show up is actually the most difficult part for many, many people. And especially to men with all the stigma connected to the stereotypes about masculinity. So many people who are feeling quite low and depressed still do show up. And that is something that can be, you know, quite a big thing. So tonight, what we're going to do is provide some clarity and validation for people who have been going through this. And moreover, we will talk about what are the evidence-based support options for people who are going through that. So the main thing is that you are okay and you're fine, and everything that's going on with you is okay. That is not to say that your struggles are not valid. This is just to say that you can deal with it. And there are always things that you can do, even though at the moment it can feel very, very hard and heavy and difficult. So, the diagnosis of depression is what DSM-5 calls major depressive disorder. And five or more of the following symptoms have to be present during the same 2-week period and represent a change from previous functioning. What does that mean? So, it has to be at least 2 weeks, and it can't be the same as the previous 2 weeks. So, it has to be a new thing, has to be something that is a significant change from the previous level of functioning. And yes, two of the key symptoms, the most important symptoms, are the depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. And these are the key criterions. So that will always have to be present. But then defining depressed mood and loss of interest or pleasure is something that different questionnaires and different diagnostic tools do differently. And this is something that we personally, inside ourselves, also do differently. There are many things we can call a depressed mood. It also depends on what our usual level of activity is and how we've been feeling the previous while. So, depressed mood can look and feel very different. And depressed mood has to persist most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by either subjective reports. So, what you say, that you feel sad, empty, or hopeless, or if there is an observation made by others too. So, for instance, if you appear tearful, you can actually be crying too. But, for many people, that's not a major concern. For many people, that's their absolutely normal coping strategy. But what we're looking for to diagnose MDD is that it is significantly different from the person's baseline. So it's very important to understand what they usually look and what the behavioral look like. The second criterion is markedly diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities most of the day, nearly every day. So this relates to anhedonia, so lack of pleasure, and this is the biggest marker. And for high functioning depression, that can, in many cases, still be true. So a biggest marker for many people with high functioning depression is that they do not derive any interest or pleasure from the activities that they loved before. They used to love cooking. They used to look forward to it. They used to do so much grocery shopping and make sure the dinner is absolutely amazing. But now it doesn't mean anything to them. It's not just, situational stress, like a particularly stressful week at work, and you don't want to cook anymore. It is something that is deeper. So they don't enjoy even eating the food. They don't want to do it even if they have time after all. So, it has to be underlying that it is the markedly diminished from previous baseline and also not actually that situationally dependent. Another criterion is weight loss. So, yes, many people eat less or more when they are depressed, when they're going through an episode, and that is something doctors have to notice. Also, insomnia, hypersomnia every day, or nearly every day. This is also quite important, but this is something that people with high function depression often don't really have. because they still have to show up, so they know they have to sleep. Many high performers, high achievers, actually do skip that step. Psychomotor agitation or retardation nearly every day, as observable by others, not merely subjective feeling of restlessness or being slowed down. This is also something that is quite questionable in high functioning cases. So, this can relate to literally like slowing down, as if anybody else can notice that you're walking so slowly and moving so slowly and not actually getting out of bed. Many people still go to work. Many people still show up for their kids, for their events. So this psychomotor agitation or irritation is not always very evident, and that can still feel like depression. Fatigue or loss of energy, this is very similar too. So some people actually manage to just skip it, but still feel incredibly empty and at a loss. Another criterion is feelings of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt. Another one is diminished ability to think or concentrate or indecisiveness nearly every day. And that is something that many people with high functioning depression cases still do have, even though they try very, very hard to conceal it. So it can be a lot harder when you are not feeling it, when you feel incredibly depressed to make decisions at work, in your personal life. But many people try and conceal it. So they do experience an indecisiveness, but they know they have to show up for some reason. They know that there is this motivation that is still existing for them. And so they will proceed and they will not show anybody that they're slowed down in their thinking. This is something that can manifest as brain fog too. And the final criterion is a recurrent thoughts of death, not just fear of dying, recurrent suicidalization without a specific plan or a suicide attempt or a specific plan for committing suicide. This is, of course, a very big criterion, but as we might know, the fact that a person is planning to take their own life does not mean that they will show it. It does not. You can be very close to a person, you can talk to them every day, and still sometimes you will never know that they're having such thoughts and plans even. So this is something that you have to watch out for really, really closely. And this is something that people with high function depression who still do show up can quite easily have, because that's something very private. And when one experiences thoughts like this, it is incredibly, incredibly hard to ever share this because it's heavily stigmatized. And overall, that, for some people, the main thought is that it just doesn't look good to say things like that ever to anyone. So, very important note, reaching out for help is the best thing you can do. As a therapist myself, I have an immense amount of respect for anybody who reaches out for help. At States of Mind, we have a provider directory, so there are so many brilliant therapists out there, so many psychologists and counselors and coaches who will be there for you, who will let you see a way out of this. So it is incredibly important. I know it can feel very, very heavy, but you deserve to feel better. You deserve to be witnessed. Even just telling somebody can be a very big relief and a very big help already. And to carry on with the diagnosis of depression, the symptoms have to cause clinically significant distress or impairment to social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. And the episode is not attributable to psychological effects of a substance or another medical condition. So just to rule that out. And in criterion B, this is what we're talking about. So DSM-5 was still compiled for, insurance companies, for the people who do the diagnosis and who give the impairment papers. So a DSM-5 criterion actually serves the purpose of marking when something is wrong. for something when something is disabling and a person cannot show up to work anymore. But with high functioning depression, the trick is that people still do show up, people still work, people still, you know, in all reports of mental health and all the DSM-5 reports, all the statistics, there is always the economic effect of one diagnosis or the other. And high functioning depression does not have an immediate cost because the worker is still there, the employee still shows up, and this is why it's often overlooked. But high function depression can be a red flag for something incredibly serious and a personal struggle. And when somebody's feeling down continuously for years, that is not to be ignored. That is a personal struggle that is worthy of mentioning and worthy of witnessing and worthy of help. So, in fact, high function depression, as I've said, is not a formal DSM-5 diagnosis. It's not there. You cannot find it there. And in fact, you will find criteria in DSM-5 in the major depressive disorder that it's not MDD, it's not long enough, the episode is not there, you don't have retardation, you don't have fatigue, it's not depression. But research agrees that in fact it is a thing. And what it involves is depressive symptoms with preserved functioning. So all the mood symptoms are there. And in many cases, the anhedonia, the lack of pleasure and interest, is also there. But you still work, you still show up. But in fact, high function depression can often overlap with persistent depressive disorder. So that is depression that does not require a 2 week episode, but in fact persists over a longer period of time, or a chronic or subthreshold depression. Um, so yes, in fact, that's not on DSM, and high function depression can overlap with many other things too. So it can overlap and be comorbid with a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, and it can be a thing that comes with affective disorders connected to seasons change and cyclothymia. So many things it can overlap with, but what we have to know is that it is still a thing, even though it doesn't have its own DSM-5 diagnosis. And on the other hand, we kind of want to distinguish between just sadness and depression, and high function depression in particular. So, sadness, when we look at it, is temporary and event linked. So, it means that it lasts for a short period of time, a limited period of time. You know when it started and you know when it stops. That's sadness. Also, it is context dependent and event linked. So, something happened, you can always place it why you felt sad. You know that you broke your mug, so you felt sad, that's sadness. And it revolves with time. You don't feel sad kind of indefinitely. You understand that it is going to pass, it is something that is going to go away. But in case with depression, we are facing persistent patterns. So it is something that you're going through for a long time. It is something that is always there for you. Many people describe depression with as this heavy, heavy blanket that is on them, that is gray, and that does not ever let them wake up and stand up and show up with the things they love. And for high functioning depression, it can be, not a blanket you're lying under, but instead like a hood, like a big gray hood that does not allow you to see things in the same light as you did before, but it's not actually stopping you from functioning altogether. And depression affects energy, pleasure, and thinking. So, as I've mentioned, there are criterions related to your overall functioning, how even your thinking and your decision making can be impaired, and of course, your pleasure, the pleasure you derive from things. And yeah, that's a very big thing. So, if you talk to a person with depression, it is not going to be just one thing. maybe it is going to be the one thing that is bothering them the most at the moment, but otherwise, they will be able to give you quite a big overview of things and how they changed. Because, um, as we have mentioned, it has to be different from the baseline. Some people just have a bit less energy, but they've always been like that. They don't particularly want to go out. They don't enjoy, for instance, talking to people. So, in case of depression, it has to be something that is changing, that is new. And yeah, also important to mention that depression can indeed exist alongside productivity. So it's not just like one or the other, because some people can, for many different reasons, still continue showing up. So now I'd like to encourage you to ask your questions. Please let me know if you have any questions so far, if you would like to share anything about your experience, or maybe your friends or your loved ones' experience with high function depression. And I would really love to know if that makes sense. So the diagnostic criteria can be quite puzzling and confusing. So I would really love to take a moment there and stop for questions. And I will check the chats right now. Oh. Mm. Okay, so Zach here said, I feel sad sometimes. What is the line between this and depression? So, this is a great question. Thank you a lot, Zach, for sharing. In fact, the difference is really quite hard to feel because the two main criterions are in the lack of interest and pleasure and in feeling sad. So, how you define feeling sad and how you define feeling down is up to you. Many questionnaires ask it in different ways, but you know, it is sadness. It is the same feeling we're describing. But as I've just mentioned, sadness is temporary and event linked, and it doesn't just persist, it goes away. You know that, something happened, it got you sad, but then it got resolved. So, in fact, what we see in sadness is different from depression. It is a lot different from depression. Um, oh, sorry, I just got notified that I'm sharing my desktop. Um, yeah, so depression, on the other hand, overlaps with many things. It impairs many domains of life, and it affects your thinking, it affects your productivity in some way, even though sometimes you do have the energy to show up still. And also, a very big thing is, for instance, the overlap of high functioning depression with burnout. So, burnout is when you work a bit too much and it gets very overlapping, and your cortisol level just make it very evident for you that work is your worst enemy, and any type of work related stress scenario is extremely bad and difficult for you. But what we can, you know, used to distinguish between burnout and depression is how do you feel when work stops? How do you feel when you have a holiday? How do you feel during the weekend? If we are facing high function depression, or if we're facing, some kind of occasional sadness or overload from working too much, or, actually stressful conditions at work, during the weekend, you'll feel just fine. You'll be so excited. You'll really enjoy it. It's going to be the best time you will look forward to. But if it's depression we're facing, in so many cases, what happens is there's absolute emotional numbness. You don't really enjoy things anymore. The pleasure you used to have from everything around you is diminished. Maybe it's not gone completely, but you do feel very different from your baseline. So, this is something that can help. I hope that's helping a little bit, Zach. And we have another mention of insomnia for several days. Yes, insomnia for several days is something that people can face. It's a symptom, not a condition, for several reasons. It can happen, it can be something that stems from overthinking and just being extremely anxious, or it can be a symptom of depression. It can be, the inability to sleep, this ruminative tendencies that are very, very prominent in depression. So insomnia, especially for several days in a row, can be a huge red flag. And imagine if that's happening to a high functioning person. Imagine if that's happening to somebody who's still showing up to work, who is still respecting their commitments, who is still pretty much the same person during the day. Imagine they're also going through that. That is actually something extremely, extremely heavy. So yes, I don't know what the question was, but insomnia can be a significant marker. And Tandrima also mentions that they have bounds of lack of confidence and mountains of self-doubt when under a depressive episode. Absolutely, absolutely, that is exactly what's happening, really, for many people. Um, and yeah, I'm very, very happy that you have been able to place that you have been able to say, no, this is not normal. This is not who I am. I need help. I have this depressive episode, and this is what's affecting my confidence. Um, so at statesofmind.com, you're going to get emails with a follow-up after the event. We have those check-ins, those mental health screenings that actually help you to understand where you stand. Um, Actually answering what exactly one has to do when confidence is that affected by a depressive episode is something that probably requires a deeper analysis and some cognitive behavioral work. But what I can say is that on statesofmind.com, we do have both. We have something that can help you identify a depressive episode. And if you're feeling depressed, like how bad it is at the moment, for instance. And we also have the therapeutic providers. We have absolutely great people listed on our website who can be there and help. So, what confidence is for each one of us is a very cognitive based thing. So, I think a cognitive behavioral intervention can really help with this. But yes, we have to, uncover what exactly that means for you, what conditions are there in play, and what can be beneficial for you, and exactly what is your goal with this too. So, what would you like to feel instead? So, yes, this is a very, very interesting topic to further investigate with maybe one of the providers we have. And another question is workaholism related to high function depression, or is it a defense mechanism to cope with difficult feelings? So yes, the research on depression is quite vast. The research on high function depression is not that big of a body of research and literature. I don't think this particular question has been investigated. At least I haven't seen it. Um, but yes, absolutely, workaholism can be related, and burnout can be related, and there is a very, very interesting link of interconnection. So, what can be the chicken or the egg? Was it because the work was getting too much that one stopped enjoying it and had extremely high cortisol levels, which led to an impairment? Or was it just a result, really, of this coping mechanism with difficult feelings in other domains? So, is work primary or is work secondary to this? I'm not able to answer this as of yet, but this is incredibly interesting. And, I'm absolutely sure that it can be very, very different for many people. So sometimes, work is also connected to safety. And it's not like one can just stop working. Like, what's going to happen then? We don't all come from privileged backgrounds. So can be very, very different. Difficult feelings can come from different places, and workaholism can come from different places, and burnout can be extremely impairing, but not. It's not the same as high function depression. For the purpose of our talk. Thanks a lot for your questions. I'm extremely, extremely happy to see your engagement. I'm sorry that there are some issues with the chat, and let us continue. So actually, another thing I want to mention before we continue is that we have a brilliant, brilliant community at States of Mind. We have a WhatsApp chat, and it's just one of the safest, warmest places in the internet, I would say. So we share our articles and some self-help tips, and I lead Ask a Therapist session there every Tuesday for free. And you can ask your questions whenever you want. And the best and the most important thing is that our community is a place where you can witness each other's lives, where you can share and listen to other people's voices. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. Um, yes, so community is something we're building, and I'm very, very happy to introduce you to it. And I hope you will stay with us and, you know, be there with each other. So the next thing I want to move on to is the case study. And here we have a case of Victoria. Victoria is a professional. She's a PR manager and she does meet work deadlines. She continues to attend the social events and she appears incredibly organized to it. In fact, she's doing great. She's up for a promotion next February. Victoria is doing well. She's showing up. In fact, she's not extremely happy with her job, but yeah, it's okay. She's trying to find a new job, and that takes a lot of energy, but she's showing up. She knows it's very, very important that she stays on top of things. Internally, she experiences persistent low mood, fatigue, and a lack of pleasure in activities she used to enjoy. So, something very crucial we see here is that she lacks the pleasure from things she enjoyed before. What she's also going through is that thinking is harder. Just thinking is harder. She used to be able to think creatively in her role as a PR manager. She was always collaborating with people. She was always showing up. She was always feeling actually a lot of joy from talking to people. But now things have changed. And even during the weekends, Victoria doesn't feel any better. She knows that she has to enjoy it. She tries to spend time with friends and family, and even things like Christmas will not be enjoyable for Victoria. So, yes, but she is well aware that depression is something that requires a 2 week episode. She had several friends be depressed, and she saw how they struggle to get out of bed. So she knows that what's happening to her is not depression, but for now, she's at a complete loss, and what she's going through is high functioning depression. And what I want to encourage Victoria to do, and I want to encourage you to do it too, of course. And there will be a link in your email follow up and here in the Q&A section, I think, too. And that link is to a screening and assessment. Just like I mentioned, this first step of saying something is wrong, I need help, something is wrong, I don't know what it is, I don't know what's happening, but I know that my mental state is not the same as it used to be, and it is something that concerns me. A screening on statesofmind.com can be a very, very valid first step. So here we have a screening for depression, and I really, really would love to encourage you to take it because it doesn't hurt. It only takes 2 minutes, and it will give you a comprehensive picture of what's going on in your energy levels, in your mood, in what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, and how you feel. And that is the first step. That is the thing that can help you today. If you just don't feel exactly the same, it doesn't hurt to take that proactive measure and to just check if something has felt concerning. Maybe it's okay, but maybe it will be a start of your path to better mental health. And once you've done that, we also have a very, 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 very good directory of coaches and therapists and people who are there to help you. So, as I've mentioned before, it takes an enormous amount of effort and courage, and it is just something incredibly heavy. I have personal experience with this too. I know how difficult it can be to say that you're not okay, but if you decide to do that, you definitely need a safe space. And we are very, very happy to give you this safe space. So I have a raised hand right here. Let me see what I can do for you. Um, yes, Miriam, I am a therapist. I'm a licensed psychologist and an acceptance and commitment and cognitive behavioral therapist. Um, yeah, if that's your question, then here it is. I am also available in our community weekly for Ask a Therapist rubric. So if you need me, I'm always there for the states of my community. But we also have providers who are available for weekly sessions or for individual one-off consultations. We really have the most brilliant people listed out there. And so now we would like to move to the treatment options. And the best first line is the cognitive behavioral therapy. It focuses on identifying and changing unhelpful thoughts and behaviors. So, in cognitive behavioral therapy, it's always a little cycle. There is your cognition, and then it affects your mood and emotions, and then it affects your behavior too. So just looking at that cycle and actually what makes this cycle work, what exactly is the trigger that always gets you there, is something that can really, really change people's lives. And it has incredibly, incredibly good evidence base. So it has been very, very helpful for reducing depressive symptoms. Another type of therapy, it's also a talk therapy, is acceptance and commitment therapy, another modality I work in personally. And it emphasizes psychological flexibility and values-based living. So um, ACT is always about where you're going. So when a person with high functioning depression comes to an ACT therapist, they will identify what are the values behind the behavior of that person. Who does that person want to be? What are the values that are driving forward that person? So maybe if they're still showing up despite things being very, very difficult internally for them, maybe they're incredibly committed to their work. Maybe they work in a high stress helping profession like in a hospital. So they will find ways to still live their values-based life, but in some different ways and to show up in some different manner. And it also is supported by research in chronic depressive symptoms. Some mindfulness-based interventions are also extremely, extremely good in this. So present moment awareness is something that mindfulness builds, and self-compassion is something we get in the end. And evidence shows significant improvement in mood and stress reduction. So the red flags we're watching for, to summarize, in high functioning depression is the chronic stress and elevated cortisol, and that can be the result or that can be the starting point. Persistent overthinking and rumination is something that people with high function depression do, and they do it basically all the time. And even when they have a weekend and they're off their stressful job, they still overthink and ruminate. And somebody mentioned insomnia, that can be the result of rumination and overthinking. Reduced pleasure is a very big marker, and emotional numbness despite productivity is something that is, for many people with high function depression, after all, is the most disabling thing. This is something that is their final red flag. But all of those are incredibly, incredibly important to watch out for. If you suspect you have high function depression, or if you suspect that somebody else you know and you love is going through that, this is something, all of those things are what you have to work for, to watch for. And chronic stress and elevated cortisol can be just precursors, or they can make it worse. But you always have to kind of keep your eyes peeled for them. And now, something that we can end our evening on, it's the self-care tips, really. So very, very simple things can help us feel better when we're going through things as difficult as high function depression. Regular routines, as easy as that sounds, like sleep, meals, and movement, can be absolutely great. So, any mental health diagnosis is, in fact, not just your brain in a vacuum. Your body is connected. Every emotion is embodied. Your every reaction is grounded in your body. So, improving your relationship with your body can be the thing that works. It can be the right thing to start your mental health wellness journey. Social connection, like the community and sharing things, sharing the good and the bad, sharing the joys, the low moments, and the nice moments, and sharing how you showed up. But in high function depression in particular, sharing how things feel, that's something very important. Behavioral activation for depression can be very, very beneficial too. So, with cognitive behavioral therapy, we often notice traps that the person is inside in the moment. Like, yes, like they believe they're incapable. So they kind of believe they're incapable because of that. But with behavioral activation and build in small actions that can be successful, that can get them out of bed, that can make them feel better, that is something that can be a great thing. Tracking mood and energy patterns and taking regular screenings for your mental health is insanely good. And the best and the most important thing out there is to reach out for help early. So, one thing from mindfulness based therapy, I want you to take away with you as this one little lesson of this talk is an exercise called stop. So, when you're doing things, high function depression, so things are often done. You often show up, you often continue ruminating or continue to feel bad, but you do the things. I want you to just stop. So when you're feeling absolutely overwhelmed, when you're doing things like cutting onions or filling an Excel sheet, just notice that what's going on in your head is completely disconnected from what you're doing in real life, and stop doing the thing you're doing. Stop chopping that onion. Stop filling that Excel sheet automatically and just do that physical gesture. Stop. Just stop yourself and find where your mind has gone. Find out what's happening and whether it's actually beneficial at the moment to think about that. Your mind is trying to solve something, but does that really need solving right at that moment? So, tiny, tiny little exercises like this can be the way to better mental health today. And I hope you try that. I hope you get to find yourself overwhelmed. Oh, no, I actually don't hope you get to find yourself overwhelmed. But if you do, that is something you can try. And yes, this is the end of the talk here. And I would really, really encourage you to take that assessment right now at statesofmind.com. And that is something that can be just amazing. It can be the best thing you've done for your mental health all week. And it's a Friday. So thank you so much for joining today. we are very, very happy to be there for you. We're very happy to exist in this space. And me personally, I really enjoy giving this talk to you. So we're gonna wrap up here, and yes, we also have two more questions. So am I a therapist only in CBT? No, I also work with acceptance and commitment therapy, and yeah, I provide general psychological support. Is high function depression linked to trauma? Yes, indeed, it can be linked to trauma. So the emotional numbness and persistent low mood can be a result of trauma, but that is a very complicated connection that has to be investigated on a personal basis. And I'd really, really love to encourage you all to seek out for help if you suspect that high function depression in your case is linked to trauma, because that needs deeper, more focused work with methods that can be effective for PTSD and trauma related disorders. Actually, we also have an event on Monday, also with me, when we're going to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder and what can help with this. So if you suspect your high function depression can be linked to PTSD, please join us on Monday. We will be very, very happy to welcome you and to understand, yeah, indeed, it can be linked to trauma, but what can you do? What are the actionable steps you can take? So yes, thank you so much for being here and for being in this space. I'm very, very happy to introduce you to our community. I'm very happy to see some new faces, and I would like to wish you to take care of your mental health and to have a brilliant, brilliant weekend ahead and a wonderful holiday season. So with this, good night and thanks a lot. Welcome to statesofmind.com.